Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
It's easy feelings long to gain. They get by a minute into force. Oh, I didn't notice the smoke getting full. But only when gapping back, chest, sliding gapping. I didn't think it'd ever come to a stop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. It's a snowy, beautiful day in the East Kootenays of British Columbia, and we're going to get straight into my show today. The last week, we've had some controversial news been breaking, and it's not something that I think any of us are kind of been unaware of over the past few years. There was tweets that went out by my guest this morning, and then there was a response that came out, which made it then newsworthy. This morning, I'm going to introduce you to Deidre Olsen. She is the lady that has the balls to step out and actually say, time's up. Good morning, Deidre. How are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. So usually I ask my guests the who, what, where, when, and why questions. So we're going to start with that. Who are you and why did you get involved with cannabis at all, period, in your life?
For sure. My name is Deidre Olsen. I'm a journalist based in Toronto. I'm currently a student at U of T and an intern at a local newspaper. I've been involved with cannabis since I was a teenager, became involved in the movement as a teenager living in a suburb of Vancouver, and the movement that began there.
Absolutely. So that was early in, 2007?
Yeah, around then, yep.
Right. And that's exactly like when a lot of us kind of started, because it was shortly after the emeries were busted for the seeds. And I think that's where a lot of us kind of catalysted into because of the controversy with the seeds. Now, you're going to university as well, and you're a journalist, and you've been a journalist for a while. So this was something that you had heard of before, or how did this whole story break for you?
This is because I have my own personal experience with the person in question.
Absolutely. So let's hear what you've already put out there for most people to hear, but let's hear your side of things.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was a 17-year-old girl, I started talking to Mr. Emery over Facebook Messenger. He quickly turned into some pretty lurid details. He invited me to his lounge downtown where I had a lurid experience. And having heard the stories of other women, I decided enough was enough, and I decided to tell my own story and tell their stories with anonymity kept in that through Twitter.
Absolutely, and it's something that has been murmuring, and I'm pleased to see that it's finally come to surface. I'm sorry. I want to apologize to you on behalf of myself and others that that you had to go through this to begin with, because this is something that nobody should have to go through. Man, woman, monkey, dog, I don't care. You know what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. But in hindsight, this is something that has been murmuring through other industries and murmuring for decades in other industries. Do you think that this is something that legalization has brought forward, or do you think this is just something that was always there?
I think it's absolutely something that was always there, and I think in the context of what I experienced, in the context that something was already illegal, it's hard to, fight against all illegal behavior pertaining to both prohibition and the sexual harassment and assault of underage girls. And I think now with legalization and the Me Too movement that we're able to tackle both of these things simultaneously.
I think you're right about that, because I think that the stigma coming off cannabis is allowing the light to be shone on other things that have been not so shone on within it, because of the fact that it was so illegal and we were so underground. And so it almost kind of went hand in hand almost in hindsight, if you think about it, not making that right in any way, shape, or form. Now, what was, this is kind of maybe a silly question, but what was the pull? Being 17, what was the pull that made you so wanting to do the cannabis? What was it that I guess brought you in?
When you're a teenager, you're experimenting and you're learning about the world. You learn about cannabis. This was a year after, I think 2007 was the year the Prince of Pot documentary came out. So, you felt like you were close to a leader. You felt like you were close to a movement. I went down to the 420 at the art gallery for my first time. You felt like you were part of something. You felt very revolutionary and counterculture. So you're drawn to the charisma of the movement.
The civil disobedience. The fact that you're actually standing for something that you believe in, and it's not because of the fact that the laws that do go along with it are kind of are ridiculous, right? So that being young and impressionable then is basically, a thing for most teenagers. They want to find themselves, right? You're looking to put yourself into something that you believed in, right? And what brought you into journalism? So this whole experience too, has it brought you into why journalism for you?
Well, I've always been a very political person. So I studied political science at the University of British Columbia, and political science is pretty close, to journalism. It was like I did my arts degree, and then I was just kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I've always been a writer, so it felt like a natural pull.
That's excellent. It's almost like, you fell into the exact thing that you should be doing, and that's terrific, because you always want to be doing something that you love. So again, being involved in the cannabis movement as well as, going to university in BC, how did that kind of go hand in hand with the activism? Going to university, was there a lot of stuff going on at the UBC, universities?
I wasn't too involved. I was more involved with the NDP. I used to be a fundraiser. I was also doing a lot of environmental and stuff for the NDP on campus. But after I graduated, I did join Sensible BC to do some fundraising and organizing there. So it's kind of always under the umbrella of the activism I was doing. Was to make, to fight for people not going to jail for nonviolent offending over having some pot, stuff like that.
Absolutely. So that kind of kept you motivated to end prohibition. And that's, I think, where, we've always evolved towards and that was one thing with myself being older. We were always looking for, the younger generation to come forward. And you're young, you're 28 years old. So you're still in that under 30 age range that really have a chance to make some change. And even with the new regulations that we have, having that voice being in your generation, that's really a huge thing, especially for the movement where we're sitting now, where we're almost kind of like a stagnant. We've gotten to the point where we're at legalization. We're throwing light onto other things that have been happening in the illegal markets for years. And now it's time to move forward and try and make those changes in a positive light, in a positive manner. Now, how do you feel about this new legal regime after being, watching how things kind of work in Vancouver and the dispensaries are, a little more availability to, have you tried the government? Have you been to a store, or have you checked out the new stuff?
Not in Ontario. I didn't want to wait. And now that I've heard about the moldy weed with the OCS, I haven't actually tried it yet. I'm hoping to, now that things have calmed down. I mean, right when legalization happened, there was I think 200,000 orders in the first 24 hours. So I just haven't done that yet. But and I must say the only good thing, in my opinion, that Doug Ford has done has make sure it's not going to be entirely privatized by the Ontario government. So I'm excited to get out there and try some legal stuff. But I think with legalization, I think it's really exciting to see the diversity of the cannabis community and industry, that it's not just cannabis culture, it's not just the Emerys, it's not just an Oak Boys Club. There's so many powerful, incredible women and people of color and LGBT people that are leading this movement. And I just think it's really incredible what the current state of affairs is in 2019.
And that's moving forward. Like I said, there's a bunch of us old hats here that, are sitting back going, this legalization is kind of, when it comes down to the laws of it all. Because we would like to have seen there be no laws. Not no laws, but, not such harsh regulations. We'd like to have not seen any jail added to any of it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that, for some of us older activists, that's the only thing that really is bothersome. But again, moving forward, we have to see the change. And again, with the sexual harassment allegations and all the stuff that's been going on, like I said, I know some of the other girls personally. I have a hard time not having an opinion. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where I've kind of had to sit back and bite my tongue and keep the confidentiality that I've been privileged to have. And this isn't the first time. This was 3 years ago when this first kind of started murmuring, right? Yeah. And it was,
totally.
And some of the, women were scared, didn't want to come forward. I want to thank you again for bringing that opportunity to them, because there is a lot of media spilling forward now. So maybe you can explain to our listeners what media you've done and why you went ahead with that too.
For sure. I tried reporting on this myself, but it's very, very challenging work to do. It's very traumatizing for women to tell their story over and over again to reporter after reporter and then see nothing get published. It's very hard. And again, I tried reporting it on it myself, but I just couldn't find on the record. But I think something has shifted since November 2017 with the Me Too movement. I was watching Surviving R. Kelly. I couldn't make it through the first episode as a victim of multiple counts of childhood sexual assault. And with watching that and just seeing how many years and decades it took for these women to, hold R. Kelly to accountability, and he's still not even being held accountable. I think Sony just dropped him, but I just felt in my being that, enough is enough. I can speak for myself. I was fortunate not to, my mother intervened. I didn't get a job at Cannabis Culture. I did not suffer the worst. So I felt very vindicated to write a thread, and because he responded, it was able to make the news, and because it made the news, other women felt empowered to come forward. So I'm so pleased that that's the case.
Yeah. And it's been tough on you and tough on the other girls too to have the backlash, because there has been backlash.
Yeah, the outpouring of support has been incredible. I have gotten the odd nasty email or fake, online profile sending me a nasty message, trolling, but it's just sad people alone in their basement suite, right? So whatever.
Yeah, I guess, right? Because that's in hindsight. You have to wonder why they're projecting the bad behavior off on themselves.
Exactly.
Right. So, do you think this is going to change things moving forward?
I do. I think the cannabis industry is such a new industry. I think that we can acknowledge the accomplishments of people in our history, and I think we can push towards a better future for women and girls that are looking to be a part of this exciting industry.
Up and comings, and that's a good thing, that it's going to be more accepting of everybody, because like you had mentioned before, There's other, more inclusive, right? Do you see yourself doing Do you see yourself in the cannabis industry in the future?
I do.
Where do you see yourself at?
Yeah.
Reporting, or what are your visions?
Yeah, I mean, I've done some reporting for Leafly on cannabis journalism, and I mean, there's just so much exciting stuff that's happening every day. I think it's such like an exciting, evolving industry. So I just think there's so much exciting reporting to do. I'm in marketing myself, so I could see myself also in a marketing position for like an exciting cannabis company that's doing social good.
Right. I think that's what I mean. We want to see ethical, good business coming forward, right?
Exactly. We want to bring the medicine to the people, right?
Absolutely. I think that's another point, that is made, that patients, we need to make sure that the medical end of things aren't being left behind too, right? Are you a patient yourself, or you just, why do you use cannabis?
Yeah, mostly recreationally, but I'm looking to shift that towards medicinal use for mental illness.
Right. And like I said, you've got no real access right now, though, to be able to go, because there's no medical dispensaries per se in Toronto anymore, is there?
Yeah, exactly. It's something that I'm in the process of looking into and figuring out. But yeah, things are a little bit tricky right now.
Yeah, I think that it's that way across the whole country, because shifting over to recreational, all the medicinal dispensaries have had to shut down. And that's,
exactly.
Leaving, I guess, that gap. You're pointing that out right now. That's the gap right there, where you're looking to want to go towards medicinal, even though you're technically, I'm just going to put this out there, whether you're using it, putting a label on it for recreational, you're still using it medicinally, because you're trying to make yourself feel better using cannabis, right? So, but that gap, so that's something that patients are feeling across the country right now. Because Shoppers Drug Mart, I believe, is, allowing, or they're starting, but, that's not, being said. So we'll go back to your reporting and stuff on this. So when you were doing the reporting, did you have women coming to you directly and telling you their stories too, and then giving you permission to tell their stories as well? And approximately how many do you think you have?
I've talked to probably at least a dozen women.
That's craziness. And more would be coming forward too. Now, there was an article in the Huffington Post yesterday where I seen that there was also a male that came forward speaking out. Yeah. Now, that's something that, we go ahead. We weren't really expecting so much, but that's something that's being said too, right? Yeah, I spoke to him as well. Actually, I think she spoke to someone different, but I did actually also talk to a man. He was a previous cannabis culture employee. If you read my Leafly article, you can hear about his experience. I think it's both men and women that have been hugely affected by the toxic workplace at cannabis culture. Yeah, and that's what I said. I don't want to discredit the fact that these are not all just sexual assault allegations. There's other allegations of mistreatment of employees, period, right? So that's exactly. We don't want that to spill over into and that's something that I think, it's hard to, even alliterate how bad it is for people in the workplace, period. No matter what industry that you're in, right? So do you think that some regulations of some sort with these new stores, like, how do you feel about unions going in and making it so that there's, certain, restriction, or not, like a rule book kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, for employees, I mean, like, for example, like, I don't think that places like Cannabis Culture should be hiring teenage girls. I think if you're selling a product, it should be the same as a liquor store. You should be hiring people of age to sell products. And I think that there should be, ethical workplace standards in place to ensure that staff are treated well, and that no situation can arise in which women and girls are made to feel like they have to put up with sexual harassment or inappropriate touching to be in their boss's good favor, and that men aren't forced into silence to witness that. And have that in turn traumatize them. I think everyone should be treated
well, and there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that people are safe as we move and shift towards, the legalization and opening of new shops.
Right. And a lot of them, I would believe, already have those regulations in effect because they are, under provincial, regulations. They have to have a license.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I said, it's when you think back to all the years that we've all moved, towards this end goal of legalization, and everybody kind of stepping over top of everybody to get there. Where was the ball dropped is my big question sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, why would this have to be happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think in the context of an illegal time, I think other illegal behavior was allowed to happen. And I think, sorry, can you ask the question again? Like in terms of the ball drops, in terms of how this behavior was allowed to persist,
exactly. Like how is it that we would just overlook this? Like, were we all just so in a tunnel for this end goal of getting prohibition ended that nobody was looking? I mean, that's. I guess for me, this way, personal business wasn't what I was looking at. If that was in your personal life, we weren't looking at the personal side of things. We were looking at the end goal. So I think it was overlooked and just kind of it wasn't in our guideline. And I think that's almost disgusting that our end goal was ending prohibition and not paying attention to what actually was going on.
Yeah. I think within any kind of resistance, especially, if it's a counter-call, really an alternative fight, I think we need to be really considerate of what's happening within our own ranks. Just because we're fighting for a cause doesn't mean that we can't enable abuse within our ranks. There's still fights to be fought on other different battlegrounds. And ultimately, whether you're the person that's in the legal or the illegal position or, whatever you're fighting for or fighting against, that doesn't stop people that are in positions of power to use those positions of power to abuse others. I think that can happen in any place. So I think that if we're going to continue fighting for this cause, we have to make sure that we take care of our own and we don't allow that abuse to persist.
Absolutely. I think now, if you're working for, say, I call them dispensaries still, but, pot boutiques or whatever they're called now, you wouldn't have that happening and you would feel free to come forward. Whereas prior to, you wouldn't. You would not have said anything because you knew what you were doing really wasn't on the right side of things, right?
Exactly. And I mean, if you're a teenage girl and you're getting paid under the table, I mean, that's already precarious in and of itself, let alone to go to your employer who's hiring you, knowing that full well, to go and report harassment. I mean, that's just that's a very challenging situation to be in.
Well, even in a legal situation, it's not easy to come forward.
No, it's not easy, period.
Well, not because it's a situation where you have to prove yourself innocent internally, along with proving what your allegations are too, and it's not an easy battle to wage. And the support I think that's behind you and the girls this time around will give that push forward. It's amazing that it's taken this long. I hate to say that, but I'm glad. I'm, like I said, appreciative that you have enough gumption and tenacity to go ahead with this, and that's amazing.
Thank you.
Truly, it is.
Thank you.
Truly, it is. So, again, because we've got I guess we can mention the other girls because their names have been published, right? You've spoken with Mel. You've spoken with Heather. What was your feel when you spoke to them? Is same pretty much feel?
Yeah, a lot of what I had experienced myself. I mean, sometimes when something happens to you, you kind of second guess yourself. You're like, am I seeing it wrong? But when you hear someone else with the same story, it vindicates you own it. It makes you realize that you can trust your memory. You can trust your judgment. You saw what you saw. You felt what you felt. You experienced what you experienced. So to have other voices sort of adding, their stories to the ranks, there's a feeling of solidarity and empowerment.
And you didn't know these girls prior to this, did you? You'd never met them before?
No, I'd never met them.
right, and not worked alongside of them. This isn't like, some, we all going to go behind the back of and, pick up a story, right? So that in itself, vindicates your story.
Exactly. I mean, my experience was isolated. I was a teenager in a suburb. I bussed with my friend downtown to the Vapor Lounge, had my one experience with Mark Emery, and that was it. And then when I heard other stories of other women having those experiences, I realized it wasn't an isolated event. It wasn't just me and my friend that had that experience. It was a whole, infrastructure of an entire business. And had I gotten a job there, I would have met Mel. I would have met Heather, because they were there in 2008 too.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was. And again, like there was, there was a lot going on back then. I mean, that was probably one of the best years of activism that, when we all got started. We were raising money. We were doing, all kinds of rallies. We were doing global marijuana marches. Mm-hmm. Like it was a busy year. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of things going on. I kind of remember it pretty well, actually, because there was a lot going on that year. Yeah. And like I said, because you didn't know these girls, and that makes it so that you didn't go back, and it was an isolated incident, so you didn't have it happen again in that sense. So that's, with them, it wasn't just a one-time thing, because they did work there.
Exactly. And I mean, I came from a more privileged, stable home. So my mother intervened. She stopped me from getting a job there. And if I had, I would have been more susceptible to what happened widespread. And I think the reason why it happened to those girls is because they came from more underprivileged homes.
Right. And that's unfortunate. Totally. I mean, and that shouldn't be an excuse, though. That shouldn't have given the green light for anything. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely not.
And I think that's where the manipulation comes in. And I've said before, at 17 years old, I'm not going to be disrespectful because there are really mature 17-year-olds out there. But in British Columbia, legal age is 19. It's not even 18, it's 19. And at 17, I know that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing with my life. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break and play a song, and we're going to come back and talk about, like seriously, at 17 years old, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm a mom. I've got 20-something-year-old kids. Like, I know what they were like at 17. So we'll just stop there and we'll take a break. I'd like to thank my sponsors here, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, the Haley Rose Foundation, and Mom Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, and 12 High Chicks Magazine. We're going to play Ronald Reggae, Bohemian, or what is it, Jamaican Rhapsody. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Is this the real leaf? Is this the cannabis? Caught on the dry side, must escape from reality. Just legalize, and I gonna plant my seeds. I'm just a homeboy. Weed is no luxury. To be here, to be there, little high, very high. Everywhere the weed grows, not all really matters to me. To me. Ganja never killed a man. Put a blunt against his head, like the light, and now he's dead. Ganja, everybody,
is a gift from God. So why go and throw it all away? Ganja is meant to make you fly. If I'm not back again this time tomorrow, pass it on, pass it on. Save me some for later. The time has come, getting legal around the world and improving all the time. Goodbye prohibition, grass has got to grow. Gotta leave ignorance behind and spread the buzz. We all wanna fly. This magical herb should be distributed to all. Puff off a square for kush, purple kush, will you make me want to go? Look at all the lights are very, very frightening me. I'm just a homeboy, nobody stones me. He's just a homeboy from a dry neighborhood, sparing his grass from this illegality. Easy plant, easy grow, will you let me grow?
So we were talking a little bit before about what was going on and how the movement's going to move forward and how, you see things moving forward. And do you see this actually, like you're done with the media, like we were talking about prior to the break? with doing the big stories and stuff. That's all already broken. Do you see this changing much more? Do you see it really doing much more, getting more legs, or where do you see this going?
I think that the more that women speak out, the more that empowers others to come forward. I mean, I can't say for certain what will happen. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it if more people came forward. If they don't, I mean, a lot has already been said, so that's incredible. I think we'll just kind of see. I think we'll see how it plays out. I mean, nothing could happen, more could happen, but ultimately I think this sets a great precedent for women that have had experiences with other men in the industry and have felt too scared to say anything. I think that the more that women are empowered to speak up, and men as well, the more people feel comfortable to speak up. And I think it's kind of a ripple effect. And, you know, like I said, I was watching R. Kelly. That's the music industry. It's a much different industry in another country, and it's had far-reaching impacts. And I think it's just a kind of a pay it forward.
Yeah, I think the Me Too movement really has progressively moved things forward. I haven't seen R versus Kelly. I can't watch that stuff. I'm just going to put that out there. I can't watch it. So that really was. So there's been other women and such that have come forward. So that the empowerment. So do you? I don't even know how to even ask this question. How do you see them moving forward? Like, I mean, that's kind of an opinionated question, but because you've spoken with them and because we know them, do you think this is, I really want to say, like, I want to support groups. You know what I mean? Like, are you guys seeking therapy? Like, are we going to be able to, you know, put something together here, maybe, you know, do something positive for the whole industry because of this?
Totally. I mean, I think the truth sets us all free. I think that being able to tell your story and have people listen and not saying that you're lying it or, you know, undermining your voice, I think that's a huge way towards healing. You know, if I mean, I've been through my own trauma in my life in various situations, and it makes a huge difference when someone says, you know what, I believe you, I support you, I'm listening to you. That's huge. I think everyone deals with their own personal trauma differently. So I hope that women can find healing and they can access the resources they need to move on. And I hope that by telling our stories, we can empower other women to feel safe and they can find their own healing.
Absolutely. And I think that's the whole point of speaking out, is finding some closure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And moving forward, because there's so much to offer. Like, these women have so much to offer in their lives, you included. Like, you've got a great future because you're all so young. Like, you're you know, finishing off your degree, you're going to go do great things and with journalism and you know, in the future. Like, you got so much time ahead of you, and I see you in the future doing great things, and that's because your voice has come out and spoken so loudly and bravely.
Thank you.
And to the other women as well. Like, you know, I'm applauding everybody and encouraging anybody. You know, let's put that out there.
Yeah, totally.
Like, please come forward. If you're anybody, if whether it was anybody, it doesn't have to be in this industry. It doesn't have to be from cannabis. It doesn't have to be anything. If you've been assaulted in any way, anywhere, please come forward. It's the only way our voices are going to be heard. And I know it's hard, because it's always hard to relive trauma.
Absolutely.
So with I know, it's just like I'm trying to figure out where we should go with this, because, like I said, we've talked about it. We've talked about the women and where your future is going and the industry is going, and where do we go with this? Like, you can't sit here and just kind of pick a point in every little aspect, but it's almost to the point where is the next step with this? Like, it's going to be closure. It's going to be healing. The end of it's going to come in.
Yeah. I think they're called the Boss Ladies of Cannabis, but I think they're doing a survey, or they've already done a survey with like the hashtag #MeTooCannabis. So I think like they're going to gather some sort of systemic data to like prove or like to evidence how women are feeling in the cannabis industry right now. And I've also seen on Twitter, someone has put together resources for people in the cannabis industry, about workplace etiquette. So I think those are sort of kind of the ways that we can really address systemic barriers for women and marginalized people in the community, and create more hospital-safe work environments. So I think those sort of initiatives are really crucial and integral moving forward.
Right. And I think that the fact that, some of the places that were toxic workplaces will not be able to operate anymore is,
exactly. They have to be held to a higher standard. They have to be held accountable for their previous actions. A company can't just bury it under the rug. If they are called out for poor behavior, eventually they're going to have to address that. I mean, if they don't, it's not very good for their reputation. So I think we are going to be addressing historical grievances and creating more hospital work environments for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing, because we've already fought the stigma about cannabis being, and I don't want this to ultimately stigmatize cannabis more. You know what I mean? Like, add this whole darkness to, they've already tried proving that cannabis people were evil and not, there's all this bad things, reefer madness caused women to do all these, there's already so much stigma on the plant. We don't need this to overshadow it. And
I think one huge thing, I think that we have let one narrative of the legalization movement eclipse all of the other efforts that weren't as mainstream. I mean, I think that having kind of a martyr for legalization, a so-called Prince of Pot, sort of eclipsed all of the work that's been done all across this country. I mean, the Emery's in cannabis culture are not the only people in our movement, and their dark history shouldn't overshadow all the important work done by other people. So I think it would be really excellent, to start profiling and talking about our history and kind of fight against the historical amnesia and be like, you know what, it's not just them. There's all these other incredible people that have been a part of this that weren't doing sketchy stuff, that weren't treating women poor. I think we need to, bring them into the public eye and be like, these are the incredible people that were here all along doing this incredible work and being amazing.
And and that's been something I think that's been murmured amongst, the underlying for years, is why it was always, them. Because, I mean, ultimately, yes, it was, forefronted, but there's a lot of other people that we know.
Mm-hmm. There was a fight being fought everywhere, and I think we need to tell those stories because those are incredible. This one organization and with a few people in it that were doing wrongdoings, they're not the entire story. And they shouldn't be the only story that's told. We should be telling the story of brilliant, compassionate people that have been there all along fighting the good fight.
Absolutely, and there's so many of them, and that have been overlooked, that have been overshadowed, because this is only one entity, right? There's so many other entities that are almost brought into the legal markets too. Like there's new people up and coming that many of us don't know. They don't know who we are, and it's good. It's new networking. It's a new horizon for a lot of new product, a lot of new technology, a lot of new research. All of that, going hand in handedly with the research that's being done. I mean, I hate to say it, the licensed production level, right? Labs that are along with this licensed production level because it has to be done.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Right. Well, that's good. Like I said, and moving forward, we can do this because women have been. Let's face it, we've been hand in handedly working in this industry. You know that too.
Exactly.
Being a young teenage woman wanting to get involved. A poll being because it's the humanity. It's all about. I don't know. For me, it was civil disobedience and changing something that I believed in. That was
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the other women in this movement also will bring forward the goodness that has always been there. Because we can't shine just the bad lights on everything. There's some really good lights that have come out of this movement. Again, because of women moving forward and men. I'm not going to discredit any of the men too. We've had so many great groups of non-for-profit organizations and patients that have worked and fought hard to get us where we are. We don't want to discredit any of them.
Exactly. We should be signal boosting their efforts and mainstreaming them and shining light on all the incredible work that's been done historically and presently.
Absolutely. And for the women that did come forward, they historically did some good work too, right? Like I said, we might have all, kind of started on the West Coast, but there's a lot of women across this country and men, like I said, from coast to coast to coast that have, started from, maybe, that push coming out of that store in Vancouver, but moved over and above and prospered further ahead because they took that push. So there is one side of that too, right? Can't discredit some of that. Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. So with that being said, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out to? We're going to wrap the show up here right away. So is there anybody you want to shout out to?
Yeah, I want to thank all of the brave and incredible women and men that spoke with me. I just want to let you know that I believe you. You're not alone. And anyone else that is suffering out there, I'm here with you. I stand for you. You're brave and you can do this.
Absolutely. And that's true. There's so many people that are supporting you, myself included. There's so much support.
Thank you.
So please stand up. Like I said, even if it's not got anything to do with cannabis and you feel like there's support, there's 800 numbers, there's all kinds of things. If you're feeling down and low, please reach out to somebody because mental health is an issue too. And that's something that hand in hand goes along with trauma and depression and anxiety. And that's what cannabis can be used for as well as for medicine. So I'd like to shout out to you again because we're it's incredible how brave you are. And
thank you.
I can't imagine what it's been like for you.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up a little early this morning because there's just really not much more that can be said. We don't want to keep banging on. We want this, to be a healing process now and some closure for these women and people that have gone through this. I don't want to make it so that it's, anything more than what it is, the truth. So thanks again for speaking out, Deidre, and I'd like to thank you so much. And you can follow Deidre on Twitter. She's on Facebook. Watch for her journalism because I'm sure there's going to be some great things that come out of her in the next little while. And stay tuned. We'll see if anything more comes of this. So again, I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Maritime United for Medical Marijuana, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partner, and the Haley Rose Foundation, and my producer, Al Rapp. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good day.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
and the moment's gone. All my leaves pass before my eyes like off dexterity. Dust in the wind. Every time there's dust in the wind. Same old bong, just a drop of water in a seedless weed. Oh, we did crumble to the ground, though we refuse to see. Dust in the wind. Every time there's dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. Every time there's dust in the wind. Now pass it on. Nothing lasts forever, surely not the jade. It blows away. Know your money, one another ounce by. Dust in the wind. Every time there's dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. Every time there's dust in the wind. Take it away, Game On. Take it away, Game On.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyndonega. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.